There was an unexpected outcome in France following the second round of parliamentary elections on Sunday night. The left-wing alliance came out on top and Emmanuel Macron's centrist bloc emerged second. A Republican front where candidates drop out of the race to keep the far right from power continued to prove effective. The National Rally came in third place with 143 seats in parliament, its largest seat share to date. The Prime Minister, meanwhile, tendered his resignation earlier, but Emmanuel Macron has asked Gabriel Attal to remain in his post for now. We can now go across to Sophie Lamotte, standing by outside the headquarters of the Greens. Sophie, good afternoon. The left-wing alliance says it will be naming France's next Prime Minister.
Absolutely. We've been outside of the Green Party's headquarters for most of the morning today. They're one of the main parties within that left-wing alliance, the New Popular Front. And we haven't seen that much movement up here, to be honest. We did see Marine Tondelier come in around 10:30. She did go inside straight away and just said that she needed time to work. Didn't want to make any political statement for the moment. We know that today is dedicated to internal discussions. That's what we found out from the few members of parliament that we've been able to speak to. They're essentially trying to find out which group they're going to, build coalitions with, which group they're going to ally with, who's going to be their new allies essentially in the parliament. They did say that they have been already working overnight, finished around 3 to 4 a.m. Last night, already starting these discussions, and will also be welcoming newly elected members of parliament from across France, coming from constituencies across the country. For now, they're taking a break. They'll meet up again at 3 p.m. Before a meeting with the other parties from the New Popular Front later tonight in an undisclosed location. They won't be meeting at any party headquarters, as to, not sort of symbolize that one might have a little bit more power, a little bit negotiating power in these deals that are going to make, because they're going to have to find an agreement, a consensus as to who will be elected the next Prime Minister, or rather who will be chosen as the next Prime Minister. They've already disagreed on the sort of method that this person will be chosen. Some want him to be chosen after a vote in the New Popular Front. Some want him to be named from the party that has the most seats in Parliament. So we'll be following that. In any case, they did say that they would put a name forward by the end of the week.
Okay, so we'll see how things pan out. Thank you very much for that, Sophie Lamotte there. Now, the left-wing alliance, as Sophie mentioned, came out on top in the parliamentary polls, and a number of figures from within the bloc are standing out, including the head of the Green Party's Marine Tondelier.
After the series of recent elections, a new generation of left-wing leaders has emerged. 4 key figures shaping the left's future in France. According to recent polls, Raphael Glucksmann is the most popular figure. Leading a successful left-wing campaign at the EU elections, he celebrated once again on Sunday.
I'd like to thank the citizens of France who believed in this alliance, an effort to block a threat they considered existential to our country.
The national secretary of the Green Party, Marine Tondelier, has grown in popularity and is now considered a symbol for the faction's future. Originally from a Le Pen stronghold, she's accustomed to confrontations with the far right.
Tonight, social justice has won. Tonight, environmental justice has won. And tonight, the people have won. And it's only just begun.
Although François Ruffin broke with France Unbowed after describing leader Jean-Luc Mélenchon as a ball and chain, his campaign was unhindered, making up for lost ground after losing to the far right in the first round of voting.
A month ago, the far right was close to a majority at 44%. The left was far behind at 20 points. And in 4 weeks, we've come back from the brink.
Manuel Bompard was already elected in round 1 with an impressive 67%. Unlike the other politicians, Bompard remains loyal to Jean-Luc Mélenchon, granting him unspoken authority to outline the priorities of the New Popular Front.
The measures in our manifesto, like raising the minimum wage, freezing prices on basic necessities, and repealing the pension reform, are policies we fully intend to implement.
After a historic victory in the second round, the left-wing alliance say they intend to govern. even in the absence of an absolute majority. The question remains as to which political figure will take the reins.
We can now bring in Andrew Knapp, Emeritus Professor of French Politics and Contemporary History at the University of Reading. Thank you very much for joining us here on France 24. Now, no party has a majority in Parliament, so what can we expect? More policy paralysis?
Good afternoon. It's going to be very, very difficult. This Republican front, which was remarkably successful in blocking the road to power of the Rassemblement National, is already proving that it's not a very good alliance for governing. There is a danger, therefore, of policy paralysis. Looking ahead, particularly to the autumn, they're going to have to put a budget together. If you look at the promises that the New Popular Front are offering, they are going to be expensive. They're not fully costed, although the New Popular Front would say that their policies of soaking the rich, a bigger wealth tax, higher income tax on top incomes is the way to do things for ordinary people who have felt excluded and who have been tempted by the Rassemblement National. And clearly, in policy terms, these people want something doing for them in the next 3 years before the next round of elections happens. On the other hand, we have the right wing, the moderate conservative right, who are pressing for fiscal orthodoxy. And we also have, and this is really important, the European Union, which is saying France's budget deficit at 5.5% of GDP is far too high, and the French must reduce it year on year to get it down to something like 1.5% over the next few years. Now, the New Popular Front is saying in their manifesto, in their program, actually, we want to ignore the European Union on that point.
But aren't there enough, centrist voices within that New Popular Front that will keep the far left in check?
Well, of course, I think what President Macron would really like to do would be to detach those moderate voices in the Socialist Party and maybe some of the Greens from the New Popular Front in order to build a centrist coalition, of course, dominated by his own group Ensemble, to govern. At the moment, there's not much sign of the president breaking up the New Popular Front. If I were a socialist now, I would wonder what interest I had in joining a government committed to austerity. I might consider joining a government with centrists if I headed it and if I were able to implement significant bits of the New Popular Front program, but really quite important bits, because I think that stake is very high. Otherwise, the centre-left goes down as inflicting yet another betrayal on the French public, and goodness knows the French far left has a long list of betrayals stretching back a century that they attribute to these terrible wishy-washy social democrats. So I think for the centre left to play ball, they really have to be to a significant extent in the driving seat, to a more significant extent than at the moment President Macron would like to give them.
Let's talk about the National Rally, because, of course, they didn't get the outcome they were expecting or they wanted. That Republican front effectively proved effective in keeping them from power, but it did make significant gains in Parliament. Its seat share increased substantially, and it's in a better position than it was in 2022.
If I were a strategist for the National Rally, I would be saying very quietly, we are in a very good place indeed. We are possibly in a better place than if we had actually won a narrow overall
Why would you say that?
Because whoever is going to govern now is going to face a very rocky ride. Now, the National Rally wants to win all the levers of power in France so that they can effectively, I dramatize a little, so that they can effectively close down French democracy, undermine the European Union from within, and align with Putin. Now, to achieve that in 2027, I think they will be far better placed coming from an opposition position and having drawn a few lessons from this election. For example, some of their candidates were clearly much too openly racist and put a lot of people up. If they can clean their act up a little bit on that front, maintain a consistent but moderate sounding opposition over the past 3 years, they will be very well placed to win both the presidency and the National Assembly majority in 2027. And all the other forces should take note of that danger and act accordingly.
Andrew Knapp, thank you very much for your analysis. We're going to have to leave it there. Thank you for joining us on the program today.